Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to you at home and to our studio audience. This is the Evidence series, and in this programme we're looking at relationships, how we connect with one another. I'm one of your hosts, Gillian Joseph, and I can tell you we're going to have some food for thought tonight and some musical treats. Ken's going to be heading up the music, Ken Burton, with his brilliant band. Ken. They get better every night. And Dwight Nelson is here. Dwight, relationships. We all think we're experts on this because we all have them, don't we?
Yeah, what's up with that? Why is that? When you think, in reality, affluent as we are in the West, could it be we're actually living impoverished lives in the context of relationships? I'm thinking of that line of Mother Teresa's, loneliness and the feeling of being unwanted is the most terrible poverty. I'm wondering if, in fact, here in the West, we live subconsciously with that kind of poverty. Relationships. We've got to move to the heart of this impoverishment.
When I was driving in today, I had the radio on in the car, and Randy Crawford came on, and the line in the song was, "We all need somebody." And it wasn't, we all might like somebody, we may want somebody, it was need. And that word is crucial, that the relationships that we have, they affect our self-esteem, whether we're happy, whether we're sad. And quite often, if we sort of change the way we relate to people, they might change the way they relate to us.
One of the most complicated things in life is relationships. How are you supposed to understand them, let alone survive them? Relationships are said to be the things that shape our communities, and they're supposed to show us how we really feel about ourselves. I have lots of friends. No one I really feel close to. Is any type of relationship better than none at all? Do our relationships with others really affect our lives that much? And if they do, why do we hurt each other? My life is full of people, and yet I still feel lonely.
Ken Burton, incredibly gifted musician. Relationships, our theme tonight. It occurs to me that in your professional world, they are what are essential for the delivery of the product. How's that work as a musician?
Well, you're very right there to say it's essential. When you're working as part of an ensemble, such as a choir or a band, it's important to actually know your place. Every single person is important. Yeah. The drummer has his role, the saxophone player has his role, the pianist has his role. And as we play or as we sing together, nobody's trying to outdo each other, but we are actually all working for one common purpose. And it's also very important that we actually can get along.
You work with some huge ensembles. How big do your chorales get with the orchestra?
The orchestra, sometimes we're looking at about 600 people.
So you have a massive number of relational networks.
Absolutely. And we try to always foster a sense of belonging and togetherness and understanding each other, because that helps.
Now, if you sense that one of the guys in the band is just not plugging in relationally with the team, what's the solution?
In England, it's called a P45.
P45? What's that?
So you give to somebody when you sack them. No, I'm only kidding, I'm only kidding.
Okay.
No, we would sort of get to grips with what the actual issue really is, because it's so essential that when you're actually working together as a band, that you actually do gel together. And in getting the band together, even for this series, what was really uppermost in our minds were instrumentalists who could work well together, not only have the skill and the technique, but who can also get along together and have the good attitude, which is fundamental to actually producing a good product.
You're a family man besides. Can you extrapolate from interpersonal relationships within your musical team to basic human social relationships?
One of the important things when you're actually doing music, even if you're playing a solo piece, is to actually have that outer ear, to actually listen.
Okay.
Many times music is spoiled because people are failing to do that one thing, to actually listen, and maybe they're playing for themselves in relationships, that's also very fundamental. You must listen and have an understanding of what the other person is doing and how you fit into that and be empathetic.
Powerful. Beautiful point. In fact, let's throw back to your musicians now, Jillian, and bring that harmony of relationships through music.
They're all checking to see whether their P45s are waiting for them now. The band behind were cracking a joke there. We're going to hear a song now called Count on Me, performed for us by Iola and Sarah. Sarah, what's this song about?
This song, it can relate to anybody, whether you're in a relationship with a certain person or your relationship with God. If you want to turn to that certain person and be comforted by them, you know, they're reassuring you, count on me.
I can see it's hurting you. I can feel your pain. It's hard to see the sunshine through the rain. Oh yeah. I know sometimes it seems as if it's never gonna end, but you'll get through it. Just don't give in, 'cause you can count on me through thick and thin. A friendship that will never end. When you are weak, I will be strong, helping you to carry on. Call on me, I will be there. Don't be afraid. Please believe me when I say, count on. You can count on me. Oh, yes you can. I know sometimes it seems as if we're standing all alone, but you'll get through it, 'cause love won't let you fall. I'll be there. Friendship that will never end. When you are weak, I will be strong, helping you to carry on. Call on me, I will be there. Don't be afraid. Please believe me when I say, count on. 'Cause there's a place inside of all of us where our faith and love begins. You should reach to find the truth and love. The answers are within. I know that life will make you feel it's much harder than it really is, but you'll get through it. Don't be afraid. Count on me. That will never end. When you are weak, I will be strong. I'll be there. Don't be afraid now. Please believe me when I say, count on, count on, count on, count on, count on, count on me. Oh, yes you can.
Count on me, that was fantastic. Now, we all have people that we count on in our lives. I know from personal experience, without the family network that I have, I wouldn't be able to achieve many of my dreams. Now, I've got with me here a special sculptor who looks at relationships in her work. Can you tell us what form you take when you look at relationships?
Well, yeah, relationships are central to my work. The relationship between the form reflects the relationship between the people. And I observe people, and that gives me inspiration to produce a sculpture.
Edwina, this one here is called storytelling. Tell us
The
about
Power of the
this.
Storyteller. Yeah.
What's this one
It's
about?
When I visited an art gallery a year or so ago, they had a storyteller in one of the rooms, and so on the floor, all around, parents were sat with their children, and everybody was concentrating on the storyteller, and the body language was amazing, and the children, they were held by the parents and so close to the parents, they almost became one. And I did some sketches and some small sketch studies when I got back to my studio, and produced a few pieces, and this is one of them.
It's beautiful. This one here caught my eye. This is
It's Into My Heart, that's called.
that's beautiful. And what's that depicting?
That one is, I saw a photograph promoting a play, a Shakespeare play, and the figure, the male figure was behind the female, just with his arms around her. And I liked the body language again, with the arms around. So I experimented with shapes and forms in the studio, and I produced that because she's relaxed back and he's sort of protective almost. Sorry.
This final one here, Dancing with Daddy, I think you
Dancing
called
with
it.
My Dad,
There's a
yes,
personal story
yeah.
behind that.
Yeah, this one is my father. My father tried to teach me to waltz when I was a child by standing on his feet, and he'd waltz around the room. And I did a few little studies in clay, and some people said to me, you know, we used to do that, or I used to do that with my dad. And I had a very close relationship with my father. And I produced this just to reflect that, you know, the trust of the child standing on father's shoes while he teaches us to dance. So, and that was the reason I did that piece.
Why do you find that the whole relationship area an interesting subject for your art?
Because it's universal. I mean, we all seek and need relationships. And it doesn't matter what culture you come from, what language you speak, that language is universal. And I just find it really interesting too to see how much I can take away from a shape and still leave the emotion, still depict the emotion behind it. And I'm gradually simplifying things more and more. That's why they don't have faces, because they're not individual people, they're anybody.
Edwina, thank you very much for bringing these pieces in.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we all seek to have relationships in our lives. We all know that that's really what we're striving for. But what do we think about these relationships that we all have?
Yeah, well, I think life's all about relationships. I don't think people lie on their graves and wish they'd done more at work and done more overtime and read more books. And I mean, all those things are important as well, but I think relationships are the key to life. I think good quality relationships are where happiness is found.
Quite important. We have 6 guys this weekend just to watch football, so it's quite important. Just hang out together and have some beers and have some fun.
I think it affects everything that I do.
Yes, it's a very important part of life.
Very important. Probably the most important thing, yes, in my life.
Very, very much. We are just married. This is our honeymoon.
Also eine Beziehung ist wichtig. Ich meine mal für die Erfüllung eines Menschen, ja, dass er glücklich ist, dass ihm alles gelingt. Wenn jemand eine glückliche Beziehung hat, dann hat er auch Erfolg in seinem Leben. Und wenn seine Beziehung eben nicht so gut ist, dann leidet auch sein ganzes Privatleben drunter und seine Arbeit und was weiß ich, sein Studium.
Oh, very important. You know what I mean? It's family, isn't it? It's family.
It's family, innit? I'll translate for our international audience. It's family, isn't it? Now, they all found relationships very important in their lives. But what happens when those relationships break down? Well, Alva Davis, she works with mentoring young people. And she says that through nurturing, mentoring can actually change lives.
Red Refocus is a mentoring organisation. It provides adult role models for young people who are experiencing difficulties in their lives. And we specifically work with young people who are in conflict with the criminal justice system. They may be at risk of falling into crime, or they may be experiencing problems in school, which means that they would then be permanently excluded from school. You know, in England, we live in a modern economy. I think it's about the 6th richest country in the world, and here where you're filming is one of the wealthiest counties in the country, and yet we have children who experience hunger, where neighbours have to feed the children. These are some of the children that come to us. We have children who experience domestic violence, the effects of drug and alcohol abuse, misuse by their parents, and they come to us damaged, they come to us not trusting adults, and they come to us believing that life is hopeless and that for them there is no future. When an adult role model comes into their lives with a completely different outlook, who just accepts them for who they are, who is prepared to challenge them in an empowering way, who's prepared to show them that as young as they are, they can take some responsibilities for their own lives and they can make choices. You just see a complete difference in that child. We live in increasingly in a world that where relationships are broken or fractured, and the young people that we see are coming from those kinds of relationships, and it has all kinds of negative impacts, not only on the young person's life but also on the family.
Before I come to the programme Read and Refocus, me and my daughter had no relationship. It was just a constant battle. We was arguing 24/7. We had no respect for each other. My daughter's just turned 14, but she's actually got the brain of an 18-year-old. She thinks the world's fighting against her all the time. We're all trying to help her, but she thinks the whole world's against her. We're all just nagging her, getting on at her.
I hate you!
But all trying to do is help her. But now after doing the programme, we got respect for each other, we do things with each other, and things are so much more happier at home.
When you have healthy relationships, you have good health, you're very positive about your life, about your future, you pass that on to others and you empower and impact on other people's lives. Children and young people enjoy success instead of failure and disappointment. It relieves the stress on parents if the relationship with their children is harmonious. And with the young people that we have on the project, we work to try and bring back some of that positivity into their own lives. We live in an imperfect world, and we're all affected by negative things in our lives, in our relationships. And to seek help, I think, is the best thing actually that you can do, and to seek the right kind of help for your particular situation. And there are lots of people out there who are willing to give you that help and support and to just help you turn things around.
Boy, she's absolutely right, isn't she? We live in an imperfect world where the door is slammed. You know what I mean?
Absolutely do.
How important then to have coaches, as Alva has been talking about, mentors, people to get us through the crises. One such person we're delighted to have tonight, Christine Northam. Wonderful to have you. You work with an organization called Relate.
Yes, that's right.
And its sole purpose is to take people in crisis and bring them through.
Yeah, Relate believes that people flourish in stable, happy relationships. And that's the work, that's the essence of the work that we do, trying to help people to have more successful relationships.
So you're talking about parent-child relationships?
Yes, we are with our family counselling.
Husband and wife
Husband and wife, or cohabiting partners.
Okay.
Really, we're very much about the essence of relationships.
Okay. So I'm in trouble, and I get a hold of your phone number. You're a professional counselor, as you are in real life. And I say, Christine, I am melting on every front, every relationship I have. What shall I do? Right. What do you say?
Well, if you came to me, Dwight, I would do a very detailed assessment to try and work out what your problems are.
That would take you a long time.
That would. And then I would be in the business of helping you to make sense of your problems and helping you to see a way forward with those problems.
All right.
You spoke about a successful relationship. What is that? What is a successful relationship?
I guess it's a relationship that's resilient or robust enough to withstand all the changes and the pressures of modern life, to cope with having kids, to cope with redundancy, and to perhaps have a row every so often, but to spring back from that row and to know that at the end of the day you can, as a couple, work it out.
It's okay to slam a door now and then.
Absolutely. It's a healthy way of communicating, as long as it's in check.
So I'm always very suspicious about couples that say we've been married for 35 years and we've never had a crossword. Huh? Do they not talk to each other?
Well, actually, I don't know that I believe them, but I also wonder just what their expectations are about relationships. Some people can jog along very happily without really getting close. But if you're in a dynamic relationship, it's almost inevitable that at times you're going to clash.
Let's talk about this closeness that you just mentioned. Intimacy. How do we achieve it?
Intimacy is about connection with other people. It's about having had a really good model, perhaps, as a child too. I think if you've had the bad luck of not learning about intimacy and closeness from your parents, then you do need to work a bit harder at it in an adult relationship. But intimacy is being close, knowing that you can support one another, that you're there through thick and thin, and that you're happy within that intimate relationship. That's what it's all about.
But even if I did not have a great childhood, I'm not doomed, am I, to repeat the past?
No, I don't think you are doomed, but as long as you can actually get a view of the damage or the impact, perhaps, of an unhappy childhood on your present couple relationship, that's what, and very often people find that hard to do. So that would be perhaps part of the work of counselling, but not always.
It's amazing, isn't it? No matter where you live, the people, the culture, we keep coming down to relationships. Why is that?
Well, I think it's because human beings like to connect. We all like to feel safe and secure. And good communication within a relationship, supporting one another, that's really the essence of it all, actually, isn't it?
Christine Northam, thank you for helping us learn how to connect.
Pleasure.
Glad to have you.
Now, we did promise you some musical treats, and we have another one for you right now. This song is entitled If You Were Me, and Sean and Deborah are going to perform it for us. Sean, what does this song mean to you?
Basically, we have the situation we're all moulded by our experience, but you don't necessarily know what my experience has been. This song really tries to relate to that and the fact that we would get on better with each other if sometimes you imagined you were in my position, and that if we do that more often with people, perhaps our communities would be a lot better.
I'm sure they would. Sean and Deborah, take it away.
If I were you, I would find myself on roads I've never traveled.
If you were me, you would feel the rain of storms that I've walked through. Oh, if even for a moment we could take each other's place, I'm sure you'd find it easier to grant each other grace, and love would be all we knew. If you were me and I were you, if I were you and you were me, maybe someday we could learn to live more patiently and maybe see each other from another point of view. If you were me and I were you, if you were me, you would know what makes my heart ring out with laughter.
If I were you, I would show the secret scars that I've never seen. Oh, but even for a moment, we can take each other's place. I'm sure we find it easier to grant each other's grace, and love would be all we knew. If you were me.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Sean and Debbie. Beautiful. If I were you and you were me, what a song about relationships. I don't think you're going to recognize him when I give you this name. You may know him, though. He was born Farrokh Bulsara, born on September 5, 1946, in Zanzibar, just off the coast of Tanzania. When he was just a tiny tot, his parents moved to India. Then in 1969, they moved to England. When he came here to England, his teachers noticed there was a very unique musical gift in this young man. Took years of piano. However, interestingly enough, he ends up graduating from the Ealing College of Art with a degree in graphic design. But Farrokh's real love remained music. A few years later, he joined his first serious band called Ibex. You still don't know? It was out of Ibex that Farrokh Bulsara, whom you actually came to know as Freddie Mercury, became the huge international superstar rock musician with the group Queens. Yep. By the time he died in 1994, listen to this. Farrokh Bulsara, Freddie Mercury, had sold more than 100 million classics. Albums, which included Bohemian Rhapsody. Please don't ask me to sing it. Another one, Bites the Dust. We will rock you. All right, you do know that one. And We Are the Champions. They were the hits that made Freddie Mercury huge globally. Rich, famous, he was worth, get this, 50 million pounds. In fact, one time, to celebrate his birthday, he rented the entire top floor of the elite Berkshire Hotel in New York City, flew all his chums over on the Concorde. They were greeted at the door by waitresses and waiters dressed only in nothing but body paint at the hands of a famous artist. And there on that top floor, hundreds and hundreds of bottles of Moët, Chandon, and other expensive alcohol consumed for hours and for days. Freddie Mercury. Wow, what a man. He had it all. Power, fame, lovers, sex, fortune. He had it all. Everything except one little possession he did not have. His last public interview. These are his last words ever spoken in public. We find out what it was he never had. I'll put it on the screen for you. Freddie Mercury, just before he died of AIDS at the age of 46. These are his words. You can have everything in the world, said Freddie, and still be the loneliest man. And that is the most bitter type of loneliness. I've had lots of lovers. I've tried relationships on either side, male or female. But all of them have gone wrong. Success has brought me idolization and millions of pounds, but it's prevented me from having the one thing that we all need, a loving, ongoing relationship. Did you catch that? The one thing that we all need. Freddie Mercury knew what it was. The one thing. A loving, ongoing relationship. He didn't have it. Relationships, ladies and gentlemen, relationships. To be human is to need relationships. Is that not true, audience? Yes, of course it is. To live as a human is to live in relationships. I want to tell you something. Even if you were stuck on a Pacific island, South Seas, you would still be driven by relationships. You ever see the movie Castaway with Tom Hanks? Huh? And he's there all alone, right? He is so hungry for relationships. What does Tom Hanks do with, okay, we Yanks call it a soccer ball. I know you call it a what? Football? What does he do with it? He paints a face on it. He has to have a relationship, because to be human, ladies and gentlemen, is to long for the glue and the guts of life, and that's relationship. Freddie Mercury was absolutely right. We exist. In fact, you are here today because of a relationship. You had a biological mom and you had a biological dad. Whether they are your mom and dad now, immaterial to me. It took a relationship to get you here. And by the way, it not only takes a relationship to get you here, it takes a relationship to keep you here. I mean, those little babies, haven't they found out? Hundreds of psychological studies. Babies are hungry, not just for mother's milk. Babies hunger for relationship. Isn't that true? They hunger for it. In fact, you know what? Babies do not bond with their cribs. Babies do not bond with their bottles, although I think our two kids pretty much bonded with those bottles. We couldn't get them away from them. Babies bond with human beings. That's right. It's just infancy, childhood, all the way through. We never outgrow our need for relationships. We've been designed, all of us, to run on the high octane of relationships. And yet you've got to admit this, no matter how basic to our existence and our identity relationships are, something has gone wrong with our relationships. Now, I see some boyfriends and girlfriends here. I'm not talking about your kind of relationship. It could be included. But something's gone wrong with basic relationships. Mom and dad and children and siblings and friends and colleagues on the job. We're suffering from something. Freddie Mercury was absolutely right. What I want most, I have the most difficulty to embrace. Something really has gone terribly wrong. You say, prove it to me, Dwight. Well, I'm glad you asked that. Look at police. Why do we have police? Why do we have armies today? Why do we have locks today? Because we've got a problem with relationships, do we not? I don't trust you, and you don't trust me, and I'm not giving you the key to my pad, right? We have trouble with relationships. Why do we have missiles and submarines? Why do we have these massive armies? Because at the core of our human struggle is a difficulty we all have with relationships. All of us, period. So, what's that mean? That means that our homes, that our marriages, that our friendships, that's why we face the broken shards and bitter hearts. All as a result of relationships. Hey, I want to tell you a sad story. Ernest Hemingway, talking about an American author. You've heard of him, haven't you? Of course. Ernest Hemingway. Do you know what his mother did one year? For his birthday, she sent him a birthday cake embedded, she put it in, the gun that his father used to commit suicide. Now, something is screwy, Louie, about that mother-son relationship. It was very broken. Huh? Broken. Yeah, we live with this brokenness. I suppose it's just inherent in life, even in the UK. I mean, I thought their story was picture book perfect. She was a princess off the cover of a fashion magazine, and he was Prince Charming himself. And yet we all know the tragic story of Diana and Prince Charles. Started out as a fairy tale, but ended up as a gothic horror story, didn't it? What was wrong with it? Not enough money? Not enough possessions? Psh, relationship. It was dead. We live with it. We live with it. Not only Freddie Mercury. Ever heard of the Beatles? Oh, my. Your Liverpool foursome that you sent to us. In fact, our country just celebrated the anniversary just a few weeks ago of their first appearance, the Beatles I'm talking about, in the United States on the Ed Sullivan Show, and America went bananas. What's up with that? You know what? Just a few years ago, somebody in Amsterdam came across some obscure tapes. We're talking about the tapes that the Beatles made of their conversations, that the tape recorder was running the whole time. They got a hold of the tapes. They released the tapes to the public. Rolling Stone magazine carried the story. And then we discover that this wonderful boyish foursome out of Liverpool, 7 years earlier, their hit, what was their hit? Love Me Do. Wasn't that it? 7 years later, they are absolutely fractured and at each other's throats. Paul McCartney is trying hard, according to the tapes, to hold the band in one piece, hoping to reunite them on a tour for the first time in 3 years. Instead, their last live performance on the chilly roof above Apple Records over here in London, they wouldn't agree to more than 5 songs and 30 minutes together. Quoting Rolling Stone magazine now, and I'll put it on the screen for you, when Harrison, stop talking about George, walked out, he wasn't leaving the biggest band in the world, he was leaving a living hell. End quote. Why? I'll tell you what the reason is. It's the same basic reason 78% of Hollywood marriages end in divorce. Relationships. It's about relationships, ladies and gentlemen. That's it. That's the human story. For the same reason, myriads of homes and marriages become dysfunctional. For the same reason that billions of dollars and pounds are spent on our self-medicating through drugs and booze because we can't handle a broken, jagged relationship. So, I think the case can be clearly made, can't you? That relationships, they're at the very heart and soul of our human existence. Broken relationships. It's rather ironic, isn't it? I mean, we can get a man to the moon. We can circumnavigate this earth. We can go to the very depths of the Mariana Trench in the Pacific Ocean, but we can't get a handle on what to do with this thing called relationships. Jean-Paul Sartre. He wrote the play No Exit. The Frenchman, you know him. This play, No Exit, was about people in hell, only not the kind of hell you're thinking about. Hell turns out in this play to be where people don't get along and are consigned to live together with those they don't get along with for eternity. Now that would be bad. One of the characters in the play near the end utters these words. I put it on the screen for you. So this is hell? I'd have never believed it. You remember all that we were told about the torture chambers, the fire and brimstone, the burning marl, old wives' tales. There's no need for red-hot pokers. Hell is other people. End quote. Tragically enough, you and I know the truth to those words. Hell is other people. So, here's the question. Are we hopelessly consigned to this hell forever and ever? Is there no exit? And if there is, whoa, I want to find it. Give me a prescription. Show me that door. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to propose to you that if we're going to find the exit, we have to agree here that relationships are based on moral decisions. Would you buy that? Now, let me unpack that for you. Moral decisions. Why is it that I find it so easy to trust someone I know who has my very best interests at heart? I know that he would rather stand up for me than stand up for himself. And I'm lucky. I have some friends like that. Why is it that I don't trust the guy that I know lies, cheats, and would betray his mother if he had to? I mean, isn't there something moral involved with this? Don't I pick the one whose trust level is highest with me? Otherwise, why would I bother? I don't need you. You mess up my life. Relationships, yep, they are based on morality. But the clincher is the question. Okay, all right, Dwight, how about that? Whose version of morality? Fair enough. It's a good question. Whose version of morality? Well, let's think about that. You're a thinking lot, as I hope I am. Let's take a look at the prevailing scientific model for life on this planet. This is the theory. You remember this. Come on, we've all been schooled in it. This is a theory that we're here by accident, chance products of a cosmic event. Long, torturous evolutionary process has finally resulted in the creation, as it were, of Homo sapiens. That's how you and I got here. So this theory declares, the standard model, it's Big Bang. It's the whole Darwinistic paradigm for life. You know the paradigm well. Did you notice that this paradigm deals only with amoral forces? Notice I did not say immoral. Immoral means no morals. Amoral, however, means no morals. In fact, can I just take that back? Immoral means bad morals. I'm glad you're right here. Immoral means bad morals. Amoral means no morals. And this scientific worldview says no morals. There's no morals to gravity. There's no morals to carbon. There are no morals to quarks and protons. It's just amoral. That's what this worldview believes in. Okay, I'm not going to debate the virtues of that particular worldview right now. But here's what I struggle with, ladies and gentlemen. Am I supposed to believe that out of this amoral morass, we moral beings once upon a time emerged? How can an amoral morass create moral beings? That's what I'm kind of wondering and thinking out loud with you about tonight. Beings who function and survive at a moral level. I realize that we might disagree in many cases what is moral or immoral, but by the way, the very fact that we disagree means we have some kind of innate sense of what is moral and immoral. Isn't that right? The very fact that we disagree. Something's inside of us. Yeah. What we all agree on, I think, irrespective of our worldviews, is that we are all moral beings. Would you accept that? Yeah, come on. Of course you're a moral being. You trust somebody, don't you? You're a moral being then. Yeah. Okay. So let me explore this question of right and wrong, this question of good and evil. I'm sure we all agree good and evil do exist. Or those acts that we collectively deem as good and evil. In fact, have you noticed the newsreader? When the newsreader is reporting a grisly murder, I don't care what culture or country you're from, when he's or she's reporting a grisly murder, have you noticed the newsreader? The newsreader, there's almost a disdain. There's a contempt. Like, what an awful and tragic thing has happened to our little community. I saw a story on that just a few days ago on the BBC. Because we all have this inner consciousness, yeah, oh, that would be good. Oh, no, that would be evil. I realize that there are some cultures in history where it has been the moral obligation of a man to eat his father's corpse. I'm not really in favor of that, are you? No, I'm not into that. But who's to say you're right, my friend, and to say that I'm wrong? See, how do I know? How do I know what is good, what is evil? Something has to decide. We've got to have some kind of objective standard, do we not? Yep. So where do we turn? We all believe we're moral beings. Where on earth shall we turn? We need some sort of moral foundation for our relationships, okay? Now, ladies and gentlemen, tonight, I want to offer to you a radical proposal. Look, a radical problem deserves a radical solution. So here's the radical proposal. I believe that the solution to broken relationships, in fact, let me put it in the positive and not the negative. It works either way, but I'm much more of a positive creature myself. I believe the protection of our most cherished relationships can be found in the Bible. You say, oh, come on, please, the Bible? What's the matter with you? Okay, look. I understand that many of you think that the Bible is a collection of don't do this, do this, don't do this, do this. Well, it's true. I'm not going to lie to you. There is some of that in the Bible. But how many would love it if the government of your country said, we have thought it all over, ladies and gentlemen? And it has occurred to us. From now on, rape, murder, child abuse, embezzlement, arson, thievery. We're rescinding all the laws that have once forbidden those acts. Now, we're going to depend on you to live according to your own conscience. If you have a proclivity for arson, cheating, child abuse, murder, just live it out. How many would want to live in a land that rescinded its don't do this and do this? Come on, don't give me this little bit about, don't do. You live with it. You have to live with it. We'd be anarchy and chaos if we didn't. Okay? Point made. And by the way, the Bible is not primarily about rules. You know what the Bible is primarily about? It's about relationships. Why does the government have rules? To protect relationships. Laws are to protect relationships.
how we relate to each other, how we think about each other, how we treat each other. The principles in the Bible are not brute, arbitrary commands. They're there to enhance, they're there to strengthen, they're there to build us up. Our most important relationships of all, the quality of our relationships. So if we go to the premise of all the world's problems, relationships are based on moral behavior. Moral behavior is based on moral decisions, and moral decisions must be based on a moral standard. Where should we turn for that standard? I'm suggesting rather radically to you that we ought to turn to an ancient document called the Bible. Let me just give you a line or two. I'll put them up on the screen for you. Talking about moral principles to preserve human relationships. Take a look at these. Here's a quote straight out of that ancient book. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but in humility consider others better than yourselves. Can you imagine life in the UK, the US, the EU, and AU? That would be Australia. Can you imagine life? Can you imagine life where everybody was looking out for the best interests of the other guy? Well, that would sure solve a lot of traffic congestion now, wouldn't it? Each of you, I'm reading on, each of you should look not only to your own interests, but also to the interests of others. Wow, what a world. Here's another line. Let's put it on the screen. Do not repay anyone evil for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everybody. If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. That would pretty much take care of Iraq, would it not? Live at peace with everyone. Let me give you another one here. This is really radical. Same quotation. On the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If she is thirsty, give her something to drink. In doing this, you will heap burning coals on his head. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. Whoa, turn the other cheek. Any moral counsel for the relationship, the most important one that many people consider, the marriage relationship? Let me put these on the screen. Husbands, love your wives. Well, that's a no-brainer. Doesn't hurt to be encouraged, though, gentlemen. Here's another line. You shall not commit adultery. What's that mean? Well, let me put another line up there. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife. Stick to what you have. That's what it means, all right? How much happier our homes would be if we lived by these moral guidelines. Here's another one for our families. Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other. And not just our families, by the way, our communities. The poor. What would happen if we had a compassion for the poor? Do you know that that ancient document actually is a defender of the socially marginalized and the economically disenfranchised? Listen to this. From way in the back of that old document, there will always be poor people in the land. Therefore, I command you to be open-handed toward your brothers and sisters and toward the poor and needy in your land. Open your hand, open your hearts up to those in need. In fact, Jesus once said, if you do this to those who are the most needy on earth, you do this, I'm telling you, Jesus said, that is the final issue that will determine eternity for you. It's all based on how you treated other people. Whoa. A couple more here. Ever heard of the golden rule? Most of us live by the rule of gold, but this is the golden rule. Golden rule is, in everything, do to others what you would have them do to you. Two more lines. Greater love has no one than this, that he laid down his life for his friends. Self-sacrifice, the highest ideal. One more. Be devoted to one another in brotherly, sisterly love. Honor one another above yourselves. Ladies and gentlemen, do you sense that there's something here? How radically different this world and society would be if we lived by these principles? I know what you're thinking. You're saying, hey, you know something, Dwight? You just tell those Christians to start living by the book they tout. Fair point. Very fair point. I can't answer for those Christians. The God that they serve will take care of them in the end. Trust me. We have Ireland and Northern Ireland. We have the U.S. with its inter-religious struggles. Yeah, it's kind of a sad story wherever you go on this planet. I'm going to let their God take care of them. Don't you use them as an excuse to abandon this moral counsel. What is truly most significant in your life? Your relationships. Look out for them. A little earlier, I talked about the prevailing scientific view of our origins in this accidental world in which we just happen to live. And we wondered aloud, how could amoral forces create moral beings? I suppose it could happen. I'm going to just be right up front. I suppose it could happen. I'm going to tell you, I don't believe it did happen. Instead, what I believe is that a very moral being created children who are like him and are also moral beings, and put it within the heart of these earth children the capacity to be able to choose between right and wrong. Look, I know, something has gone terribly wrong. I mean, look how messed up it is on this planet right now. That's not your fault, that's not my fault. That's not his fault. But somewhere there's going to be a solution to this. If relationships are that significant to us, you can only imagine, given the premise that there is this moral being creator, you can imagine how significant relationships are to him. Which is why, again, I think of that ancient document designed to strengthen, enhance, and protect our relationships. You see, that's why I believe one of the reasons the Bible talks so much about relationships is that they are so utterly important to the God, the G-O-D of the Bible. Now look, I'm moving towards a wrap here. I would be remiss if I told you that the Bible is simply a book about how to get along with each other. It is not. There is much more in that book. But the high ideals that the Bible paints, if that's all the Bible offered, you and I would be dead meat. We wouldn't know. I mean, I love this ideal, but how do I do it? Which is why what the Bible is ultimately about. The Bible is ultimately about the ultimate relationship, a relationship with God himself. In fact, you read the heart of the book. The heart of the book is about that friendship, growing a friendship with this God who is a moral being and who wants to draw you into his relationship and thereby help you find the strength and the courage to live out in honesty and faithfulness the relationships that are most important to you. Something that the scientific worldview, ladies and gentlemen, it cannot do for us tonight. Amoral, sorry, can't help you, good luck. No, there's somebody who steps in and says, wait a minute, I can help you. I can help you with everything that matters most to you. G-O-D. I want to end with Freddie Mercury. We started with Freddie Mercury. Let me end with him. Farrokh Bulsara, the man who had everything. Sex, money, fame, power, everything except what he wanted most. How did he put it? I just wish I had one satisfying relationship for my life. One of the last songs Freddie Mercury ever sang. Recorded. The lyrics seem to capture what we've been about all evening long. And I want to end with these lyrics. This is Freddie. Put it on the screen for you here. Freddie Mercury singing. The show must go on. Inside, my heart is breaking. My makeup must be flaking, but my smile still stays on. Whatever happens, I leave it all to chance. Another heartache, another failed romance. On and on, does anybody know what we are living for? Whoa. The broken heart of broken relationships. Freddie Mercury died of that broken heart. How did he put it here? His last line, does anybody know what we are living for? There is an ancient book. And that ancient book says the answer to that question is yes. There is someone who knows what we are living for, what we are looking for. I want to tell you something. You don't have to take my word for it. Why don't you just take his word instead?
Now, we know we've given you some food for thought, so if you want to get in touch, please do. There's an email, there's a website address, and also there's a telephone number. We'd love to hear from you.
Speaking of emails, we've already gotten some, one inside the UK, one from Norway. Here's one from Manchester, DG. Dear Evidence team, I've really enjoyed watching your programs and have especially appreciated the music and think the band is amazing. Your program... Your program on love was really interesting, but what about forgiveness? How do you forgive someone you love? We actually have that coming up in just a few sessions. That's DG in Manchester. Dear Dwight and Jillian, I saw the Evidence program last night. This is Norway. It was very interesting, and it was lovely to see children being inspired by love. The topic was very appropriate. Thank you for sharing your talents with us. Well, thank you for sharing the email with us. Keep those emails coming. The email address should be on the screen. I think as we wrap up here, let me add one more final thought. Could it be that the fact we have a sense of morality and a hunger for relationship is not simply because of some sort of accidental happenstance, but that rather both were placed deep within our hearts by a moral being who longs for us to share a relationship with him too? Think about it, and then join us again next time for more of the Evidence.
Bye for now.